Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Bobby Manning here, and welcome to a Summer League edition of the Garden Report. Game 2 in the books, and the Celtics win by double digits again, even with Hugo Gonzalez sitting out. Miles Norris rested this game as well. Rest nights for both those guys. Gonzalez, Brad Stevens said, he's going to need a night off after playing most of that game in the opener and the quick turnaround from Spain and all the rest. So not unexpected there. Sounds like he'll go tomorrow against the Heat. And we have with us here Gary Washburn from the Boston Globe, as well as A. Sherrod Blakely's Big Three podcast. Welcome in, Gary.
Good to be here, guys. And gals and everybody. Good to be here.
Noah Dalzell alongside as well. So we will open with this game, Gary. And your overall thoughts of Summer League so far? Ugo played in the opener. You're seeing Charles Bassey come through with another monstrous double-double in this one, and we'll talk about where he's headed potentially here. But it was an interesting game because the Celtics pretty much cruised through. A lot of pressure defensively, playing up, pressing. They're trying to play faster. I think that's a priority that they're trying to bring into this year. So what have been your thoughts about the Summer League overall?
Pretty positive. They're a very talented team up and down. Obviously, they rested Ugo today and Miles Norris, but they still kind of pretty much handled the Knicks the whole way. I think the lead got up to 21 or 22, and, they just withstood a bunch of runs. But I was impressed. I mean, Jordan Walsh looks comfortable out there, although he had a lot of fouls today. He fouled 5 times in 12 minutes. He was like Daniel Tice Jr. out there today, but he looks comfortable out there. Bridges, I was very impressed with. Really, just a guy who plays in the flow of the game. 38 Green, I think, is the other number 38. Because I haven't memorized the entire roster, and they played almost everybody today. I thought he was good. But I think roster. Yeah, I think overall just impressive. I know they're playing Wong at the point because they don't really have a true point guard. But yeah, I mean, I think they're doing what they're supposed to do. And with Williams and Bassey in the paint, I mean, that's a real dynamic duo for Summer League, right? A two-way guy and a guy who's obviously shown that he can play in the NBA in the paint. So they're just dominating the board. So, and I thought, I was interested to see Bassey against the Knicks two-way guy, the big man, and he fared very well against him. So I think he's passing all the tests. So overall impressive. I know that it's point differential matters and all that, and obviously records. So we'll see if they keep winning and get maybe have a chance. I know Noah's rooting for this.
I was just gonna say we heard Noah's question after the game. She's already starting to think about this as a championship team, Noah.
Yeah, Noah wants to taste a little bit of champagne.
Listen, I'm going to be here until the very last day of Summer League, and I would love to cover a Summer League championship. Celtics season ended in the second round. I need to be around championships right now. So
she's ready for the she's ready for the parade down Boylston.
Thinking about that. Yeah, exactly.
She's ready for the parade. Yeah. You might be better off getting that.
Yeah. Gary, I'm curious because I think the guys that matter the most for the Celtics standpoint are, Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez. Outside of that, we don't know who else is going to be on. I mean, obviously the two ways as well, but the other guys, I don't know if they're going to find their way in Boston or if they're being showcased for another team. But, in your years covering the league, how much does it really matter if Baylor is shooting well right now or if he's dominating versus kind of doing what he's doing? Is it could he just be having a tough week, or does it start to kind of matter? You think and it's your second year, you're one of the oldest players and you want to kind of dominate the game more. It's hard for me to gauge how much this stuff really matters.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think shooting percentage gets overrated in Summer League. Everyone was ripping Cooper Flag because he went 5 for 21 in his debut.
And he was so impressive in that game. Yeah.
Cooper Flag's going to be fine. And I think Baylor will be fine. What you're looking for in Summer League is where players can get to their spots, whether they can get their shot off, just kind of their overall comfort around players who are all like, overseas guys, free agents, rookies, that type of thing, second-round picks. So I wouldn't play too much into the Baylor three-point percentage. I know he struggled the first two games, but he looks comfortable out there. But eventually he's going to need to start knocking them down. Now, let's say he continues to struggle in the last couple of games, or who knows, this might be it for him. He might sit out the last 3 games, being a former first-round pick. I mean, I don't think he's going to play all 5, obviously. But does he take the rest of the summer and work on some maybe mechanical stuff with his shot? Like, this might spark something like that, some work, extra work on his jumper, because they might see something that's maybe a glitch in his release or something. But I'm not as concerned about Baylor. My only concern, Noah, number one, was Jordan and whether he looks like a real NBA player out there. And I think he does. He has looked very comfortable. Obviously, he's only 21 years old. He's been through his 3rd summer league. He should. I mean, I think we kind of felt that way about J.D. Davidson last year, right? Like, okay, J.D., like this is you're reaching the super senior level of the summer league. You got to look like one of the better players on the floor. So I think with Jordan, he looks like it. With Baylor, maybe not as much, but I think Baylor will be fine. He's doing other things besides scoring, but obviously they're going to need him to knock down the 3.
So I was listening in, and Brad has said this stuff in other press conferences. He repeated a lot of the same stuff we've heard, but he went on the broadcast during the game and was talking about guys not trying to do too much, specifically Shireman, because it does feel to some degree like he is heading down that Walsh road from a year ago of trying to press, trying to show off, trying to do all this different stuff. And I think you saw that especially in the first game. Tonight was a little better. So that stood out to me. And then number 2, he has said this a couple of times as well, is we might have to play a little different this year. Our style might have to change. We might have to play the strengths of the guys who are on our roster. It's a different roster now, obviously a drastically different roster. And I was saying this to Noah on the rest of the Garden Report, Gary. It's going to drive me crazy if they're just having Walsh stand in the corner and shoot threes, and Ugo, who's obviously his skill set is not shooting threes. Guys up and down the lineup who – can you get them involved in some other ways? I loved hearing Matt Reynolds talking about doing some more cutting, and Shireman said that they're doing that too. I think that's a great addition to this offense. And then we obviously talked to Minot, who's a good cutter, and Garza is a guy who does shoot threes, but he's more of a traditional center. So they have a bunch of different players who they're going to have to figure out a different way to play around, because they don't have a 5-out offense anymore. They don't have a Porzingis, Horford level center anymore that you can play that style with. They're going to have to play a little faster. They're going to have to play a little more cut heavy. Are you expecting that this year?
Yeah, I do think that they're going to have to change some things, because if you look at the numbers of the number of 3-pointers they're missing from this year, Tatum hit 250. Drew Holiday hit 108. Al hit 114, and Porzingis hit 103. So I can't do my math that fast, but that's like 600 threes, or almost 600 threes that they're going to miss this year, and from last year's team. So you're going to have to approach it differently, because I just don't think you have the long-range shooters. You've obviously got Pritchard and Hauser back. Derek's a good 3-point shooter. Jaylen, we'd like him to be better from beyond the arc, but he's a streaky 3-point shooter. He can hit 5 in a game, and then he can go 1 for 8 the next night. But I do think they're going to have to be more defensive-minded. Not to say they're not, but like they can't win games having this, like they're not going to have a top 5 all-time offense next year. They're going to have to play really hard, hustle, get rebounds. I'm impressed with the defense in the summer league. They're pressing. They're forcing a lot of New York.
Remember with the Pacers in the playoffs, Noah? Like they were pressing all the time, and it was so effective.
Yeah, they forced a lot of New York turnovers. So, like you're right, Bobby. I definitely think that they're going to have to change the thing. They cannot just go out there and play, Mazzulla ball with the spread the floor when you don't. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know Noah asked a really good question the other night, last week to Brad about, who's playing center, and it's like none of the people we're talking about shoots threes, right? So the you're losing Horford and you're losing Porzingis. That's 100 and something threes, and both of them played short in parts of the season. So their 5 is not going to be able to shoot 3, so the 5 out thing ain't working. So I think they're going to have to play a little differently this year.
And it's interesting because Brad talked about that on draft night too, that just him watching the finals made him kind of think about the stylistic changes that would be benefiting this team regardless. Now your hand is forced, right? Because we talk all the time about Joe Mazzulla and the three-point shooting, but he always said it was about the personnel, right? So it's like, the question is like, now we'll see, I guess, how do you kind of manage completely different personnel? But I also don't know how much to draw from the Summer League pressure. Like Matt Reynolds said today that sometimes in Summer League, it's just easy to play that way. Everybody's kind of pressuring full court. So is it a sign that the Celtics are going to do it? I don't know. But it's fun to watch. Like stylistically, them shifting away from the way they were playing in previous years, even though it was effective. I think fans are going to like this new style, unless it goes terribly. But I think there's a lot of promise from a stylistic standpoint.
Yeah, I wouldn't get excited about it because remember last summer they're gonna play a lot of zone. Remember that? Oh, the Celtics are gonna play zone, and they're gonna try because remember how Miami had locked them down in the 23 Eastern Finals. So like I wouldn't get too excited about this pressing defense and think they're going to be like 40 minutes of hell, and just or 48 minutes of hell and just like berate teams on defense. But I do think it's something to look at.
Well, they do have some different personnel this year. They do have some different guys they can go to, and we heard from a couple of those guys here today. Josh Minot, who I'm interested to see where he's going to play positionally, and then Luka Garza, who will probably be the backup center on this team, if not the starter, if he breaks through in that position. So 2 guys you wouldn't have expected coming from the same team to potentially have significant roles on this team, but we heard from them for the first time today at halftime. Here's what they had to say.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things. Obviously, the franchise speaks for itself, and just the winning and the history. And I'm a big basketball junkie, so obviously the chance to put on that uniform and play for the Celtics is attractive enough. But obviously, there's a lot of opportunity, especially in the front court and with the guys that we have. And I think the front office and the coaches believe in me and what I can do. And so I just saw that as a really good, really good for me at this stage in my career. No, I didn't. So it was a surprise, but I called him right away once I saw the news, and we were both excited. I mean, we've been through a lot together. We went when he was a rookie. We went down to Iowa together to play for the Iowa Wolves, and went through training camp, and then kind of made it up together to the Timberwolves, and started to see opportunities, both of us. And both of us, quite honestly, really did produce when we did get those opportunities, but just didn't see too many of them just because of how stacked of a roster we had. So it's cool to see and have someone come with you, that you have a good relationship. And I feel like me and him have always connected on the floor, just playing with each other. So it's gonna be cool to have the opportunity to continue that in Boston.
What's it been like playing with him? I mean, shit, from the Iowa days, man, I think we all know he's unstoppable on the offensive end for sure. So he's gonna be someone that can just really space the floor. You can't leave him open. He's energy guy. He's gonna get every old board. I think that's what I've observed out of him. Man, they shoot a shit ton of threes. But no, I mean, I'd say overall just their movement, ability to get downhill, create for others, spray out threes, all that. It's a bunch I need to study for sure.
What was your first impression of them, Noah?
I had in my mind the story of like 2 best friends together. They were like, we're going to go from Minnesota to Boston. So to hear that they didn't even know the other was going to go, I was like, there goes my story. But no, they both seem like nice guys. I think I've talked to some Minnesota reporters, and I think it really was one of those cases where they never really got the chance to show what they're capable of. And I think this year is going to be an opportunity for a lot of guys that have had that situation in their career, both on the Celtics and in Minnesota. And a few of them are going to filter through and make an impact, and probably a few of them will be filtered out and maybe have to go elsewhere, or that's how careers kind of come to a fizzle. So I don't know like who I really believe in yet between those 2 guys and some of the guys in the Celtics, between Jordan and Baylor. Like there are a lot of names of players that have a ceiling and have some opportunity, but it's kind of hard at this point to be able to discern like who's going to break through. And I don't know if the Celtics even know who's going to break through, but they needed somebody besides Neemias Queta in the front court. And now there's going to be, some competition at training camp for that starting spot. And I still think Keita probably has a leg up, but I haven't watched enough Luka Garza to know how accurate that is.
So I love Garza, Gary. I'm sure you watched him in college too, and he played against Syracuse while I was there and had a monster game. Obviously, all he did was have monster games in college, and the numbers haven't shown it yet, but he can shoot. Like he can hit, pick and pop and hit a three, and obviously if Small goes on him, he's gonna back that guy down and score. So the offense isn't a question. It's can he play defense in this league, and that's what we're gonna see because he hasn't played a lot. He's been in the league 4 years and just hasn't played much, and in the G League, he's one of those guys that's too good for the G League. He dominates when he goes down there. So I'm intrigued by him. The defense is going to be a question with all these centers that they have this year. Keita's had his ups and downs there too. And if they go smaller there, obviously they're going to be undersized. But Garza to me, I almost venture towards saying he's the most intriguing of all these centers because there's a real bona fide skill set there on one end of the floor at least.
Yeah, he reminds me, and not just kind of a Tyler Hansborough, like an amazing college career, and then just couldn't. But Hansborough couldn't find a fit in the NBA, as kind of an undersized, but a amazing college career. Garza was a guy, like I think I said on another, I think on the Big Three, like he was Caitlin Clark at Iowa before Caitlin Clark. Like he was like first team All-American, storied career. They did, the bio on the Big Ten Network on him. Like this is a guy who just probably is considered God when he goes back to Iowa City because of what he contributed to that program. And you're right, Bobby. He hasn't had the opportunity. So the question is, I think the one thing I notice is he's in really good shape. I think he was a little bit bulkier when he came into the league. Now he's really lean, and we'll see. Like I just thought he kind of played with his hair on fire, and that was the thing that got him to where he was, just like that relentless situation. But in Minnesota, obviously he played the first year in Detroit. In Minnesota, he's playing behind Naz Reid and Gobert and Julius Randle, and like even let's say a McDaniels when they want to play him at 4. So the opportunity wasn't there. Why not? He's played a career like I think it's one of those situations like Jordan. Like he had a okay freshman year at Memphis, and he came out and he's played 5 minutes, average 5 minutes a game over the last 3 years. Like we have no idea about Josh Minot. Like I know he likes to say the S word a lot.
Every sentence.
Yeah. Like I was, he's a great.
He's not going to be good for TV.
Yeah. We not see him on the local networks too often, but I just think he's a complete mystery because he's played so little. Like I said, look, average 5 minutes a game and played very little last year. So like, is he, a guy who's a candidate for Maine? Can he earn minutes? On the roster in the front, we have
There's
no
a case
clue.
He should be playing on the summer league team.
Yeah, he's not a guy that I'm just looking 93 games over 3 years. He averaged 2.6 points last year. He shot 32% from 3, but he took 1 3 a game, and he averaged only 6 minutes. So that's like very little exposure to NBA basketball. He's played 463 NBA minutes in his career, and he played more last year, but still 5 minutes a game, and he played 46 games. So, like, you guys might know more. I didn't see him much at Memphis, but I haven't seen much of him at all. So I'm like, what does he bring to the table, and So
what did the Minnesota people tell you about him, Noah?
The opportunities have been so limited.
Oh, and then are we getting Noah here?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
just muted myself. That he's a high energy player, a high character guy. He was very involved in the community. Everybody liked him. Everybody liked having him around. But the opportunities were just so few and far between that it was kind of hard to evaluate the things that he's supposed to do. Like, he talked himself up as a defender. And I think that's one of the things you want to see from him, is being able to defend 1 through 4, as he said. I don't think that he really demonstrated that in the small samples that he played in Minnesota. So it is like Gary said, it's so limited that with all of these guys, like, I bet you right now, if we rank who we think is the most promising of like these 5 or 6 guys in the roster that are all going to be in developmental phase and kind of an experimental situation, a year from now, the ranking will be completely backwards. Like, where I really think it's really hard to gauge, but that's kind of what they're doing, right? They're trying to give a bunch of young players, low cost contracts, and see who surfaces. And so, we're all going to have our own opinions, but ultimately they're all very limited because none of these guys have really played much at all in the NBA.
Well, that's exciting to see guys you don't know much about learn their games, give them opportunities, and even guys who've been on the roster. Gary mentioned Walsh, Shireman last year obviously didn't get full opportunity. You're going to get a chance to go deeper into your lineup and see what you have this year. And I think that's a worthwhile thing, because development, bringing guys up, finding guys who, I call it the second draft thing. I didn't come up with that, but they've done that a little bit over the last couple of years here, and it hasn't worked with Banton and Springer and some of these other guys. So Minot didn't work for him in Minnesota, didn't get a full opportunity. He's probably going to get to play a little bit here, at least in Maine, as Gary said there. And he's got some length. He's got some defensive, tools that he hasn't actualized yet. I know you mentioned that, Noah, that at that end of the floor, we're going to see what he has there. But he might be a small ball center. And I asked him about that today, and he said, maybe I can guard 5s a little bit. And I know Brad mentioned using some smaller players at the 5 too. So that's what intrigues me about him. And there's some other news in the Celtics world we want to get to. Obviously, Celtics moved to 2-0 here in their Summer League slate. They're going to play the Heat again tomorrow. So stay tuned for our coverage of that. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. And it's summertime, but there's still a ton of action on Prize Picks between women's basketball. You got baseball going on now. And the best part is you can combine these leagues. So you can make a team with Caitlin Clark, go more on her points. You can go more on Shohei Ohtani's hits. And that's a super team right there. And that's how Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports easy, accessible. You can win up to 2,000 times your cash over there. And when you play $5, you'll get $50 instantly by using the code CLNS. Again, just build your first lineup over there. Pick more or less on 2 or more player stat projections, rebounds, points, home runs, hits, all the way down the line. Esports is well available over there. So play $5 and get $50 instantly with the code CLNS. That's $50. You don't even need a win to get the bonus when you play $5 instantly over there with the code CLNS. Prize Picks, run your game. So continuing on here, Gary, you've been reporting this Damian Lillard saga throughout, and I want to hear from you on this. As the Celtics feel like one of the stronger destinations for him, and my big question is whether he's going to sign this summer and, I don't know, take a minimum, take a mid-level, let the Bucks money offset, and allow him to be on a team through his recovery process and get started building toward what he's going to do probably, I'd say, the next season after this one, or at least late this season. So are we going to see him sign with a team this summer potentially, or is he going to wait till next summer when he's healthy and can maybe sign more of a real long-term contract?
Yeah, it's an interesting – I think no one really knows what is going on in Lillard, because this is the first time he's been like a free agent. And I was told that he was kind of ready to leave Milwaukee. Milwaukee just wasn't ever really a great fit. Obviously, when Portland was looking to move him, he wanted to go to Miami. That didn't work out. There was the Celtic rumors, and I know our friend Chris Haynes was like, no, he ain't going to Boston. I've been told that that's a little different now, and that he's open to new teams, and obviously he wants to win a championship. The only thing he does not have in his career is a title. He's top 75. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's 4th all time in 3-point makes. So the only thing Dame doesn't have is a chip, or even getting close to one, right? So I think it all depends on what he wants to do in terms of, like, does he want to make $10 million instead of, let's say, the Celtics have the taxpayer mid-level at 5.6 or 5.7. Like, does he say, no, I think I want 10? Like, is it, he was paid very handsomely in Portland. He signed the max deal there. He's going to get all of his cash from the Bucks. So I don't think money is the issue. It might be fit. It might be just kind of taking the summer to spend time with his family. I know he loves Portland, and I think what people may have overlooked, or, he had a really nasty divorce. And his family, his kids stayed in Portland while he was in Milwaukee. So I just think he's enjoying the home time. I think maybe a condition to sign with the Celtics might be to spend some more time rehabbing in Portland. I don't think the Celtics would have a major issue. I think they can, Dame's a professional. He's not going to lax off and, to be around his kids. I mean, they've encouraged family thing. Obviously, Noah's written a lot about that, just kind of how the Celtics really encourage family. And so, to me, I just think it all depends on what Dame wants. I know the Celtics have an interest. I think it would be awesome, in my opinion, to unleash him in 26-27 along with Tatum and Brown and White and Pritchard, and then see about winning a chip, because, like, you have to try to take advantage of the window of Tatum and Brown. They're not going to be young forever. And Jaylen's a few months from 29. Jason's coming off a major injury. We can't assume they're going to be, balling at a high level till they're 35 and 36. Like, you just can't do that. You've got to hit the coals where they're hot.
Yeah, it's interesting because there was really not a lot of momentum the last time around. And I wonder what part of Dame is like, well, I wanted to go to Miami. Now I have the opportunity to go to Miami if I want. I assume any team would sign him for a minimum. If he's willing to take that, I'd probably get more, but he kind of has his pick right now. I would guess, unless there are some, there are some teams that don't want to take the 1 year on their books for a player who's not going to be able to contribute. But the question for me is, who is going to be able to give him the best chance at winning a championship in a year? And it's so hard to gauge right now because so much is going to change. Like, I've seen him linked to the Warriors because he's from Oakland. Like, is that team going to really have much left in the tank in another year from now? Teams that are kind of middling, they're on the rise, maybe they present a better opportunity. So I'm sure a big part of his calculus will be trying to kind of figure out a year in advance who's going to be in the mix. And so in a sense, there's almost like some advantage to waiting till December if he can, right? See how some of these teams shake up, and like, are the Celtics a total disaster? Are the Warriors, Steph Curry got hurt, knock on wood, like stuff like that. Like, I think he has a little bit of incentive to not make a decision right now and to just see how the teams that he's eyeing come together in the fall, right? So do you anticipate that this decision will be made like this summer, or is this something that you think would probably spill into next season?
Yeah, that's the interesting part. We don't know because this is his first time in free agency. I don't think he's in a hurry, but I think he understands the politics and the business of the NBA. And for him to wait till like, hey, I'm going to wait till February to the trade deadline, like he could do that and he could just kind of rehab on his own. I'm sure he's got a professional, personal trainer in Portland, and it's going to put him through all the rehab, or does he want to be affiliated with an organization? Does he want to be kind of a part of a team and knowing that, like, because the Celtics, let's be honest, like they can go to him and go, okay, Dame, like if you really want to come back this year, you can, or take the year off and then come back fully healthy in 26-27, and then we'll have a chance to win a championship. And I think what people are overlooking about Dame is he played years in Portland with like a stomach muscle issue. And then remember, he missed
abdominal, yeah.
Yeah, like he missed most of a season having surgery. And he kind of said after that surgery, like, I feel younger because I played so long with this situation. So does that put a couple of years on his career? Like, did we see serious slippage in Milwaukee with Dame? I didn't really see serious slippage. I just saw kind of a poor fit. I just saw everybody was talking about the pick and roll with Giannis, and that never developed. And then they went through Adrian Griffin situation, and they brought in Doc, and then Giannis missed some time, and then Dame. It just didn't work out there. It was not a great fit. So
he had a blood clot too.
Yeah, the blood clot.
No, I was going to say, Gary, that's a great point, because I do think obviously the Achilles injury is a major one, and who knows what he's going to be when he comes back. But the reality is that like people kind of talked about in the last few years, like he had already really declined, but he really hadn't. Like, he had a fine couple shooting seasons. Like, the team being a mess and the situation not working out, I don't think was reflective of him not being the player that he was cracked out to be. Like, maybe he's not the best he's ever been, but he had two solid years in Milwaukee. And I do feel like it's been a little bit like that story's kind of changed a little bit in the media because everybody thought that this was going to be like the next championship team and that they were going to be the most lethal duo, and it just didn't pan out. But up until the injury, I think he was still an elite player. And after the fact, just because he's such a sharpshooter and like has been a historic all-time shooter, like, I think you take him if he's interested. Like, I can't imagine the Celtics not wanting him for a good price because it seems kind of low risk, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his numbers in the 2 years in Milwaukee compared to Portland, they're eerily similar. Like, he shot, he averaged 25.2 in 11 years in Portland. He averaged 24.6 in 2 years in Milwaukee. He shot 44% in Portland, 43.4 in Milwaukee, 37% from three in Portland, 36.4 in Milwaukee. Like, these are eerily similar numbers. His rebounds were a little bit up and his assists were a little bit up in his Milwaukee time. So this is not, you're not seeing a major drop off of like shooting percentage, 3-point percentage. His 2-point percentage was better, slightly better in the 2 years in Milwaukee than it was in Portland. So I didn't look at Dame and think, man, now obviously his last year in Portland, he averaged 32 a game, but it was only 58 games. But that team was not exactly a playoff caliber team, and Dame was getting them shots up. He was taking 21 shots a game. He took 17.5 in his first year in Milwaukee and 17.1. And I think the advantage for the Celtics is they don't need Dame to be number one, number two, or maybe even number three. Now, I don't know how Dame will feel about being the fourth option behind Tatum, Brown, and White, but it's a situation where he can flourish and he can get his shots and he can spread the floor. And people are like, well, he's not great defensively. But to me, like, you like, what 6'1" guard is like a damn defensive stopper? Like, I'm just,
Oh, this is part of that conversation too of what we said earlier. Like, this is going to be a different style of team, and they might have some defensive weaknesses now. Like, they had the luxury of all those years having defenders at every position, guys who can switch everything. That's not how every team's going to be in the league. So you have to prioritize the strengths where you can build them, and they just don't have guard depth right now. You got White, you got Pritchard, and that's great, but there's nothing really behind those guys. So bringing in a Lillard and rounding it out with those three guys, I think is a no-brainer. If they want to shoot a lot of threes, this is a guy that can take 8, 9, 10 threes a game and hit them at an efficient rate. So I love all of it. Low risk with the contract. I don't think there's any reason to not like this, unless you just don't think he fits in personality-wise with the other stars here. But you've reported, Gary, that Tatum's actually trying to get him here, and those guys have a good relationship. I think him and Brown have one too, from what I gather. I don't exactly know that, but I think the stars on this team are amicable enough, and they've shared the backcourt with Kemba in the past and Marcus, obviously, and some other, high usage guards. So I think he wouldn't be a drastic change for some of those guys, and the timeline obviously fits with Tatum too. So is this something where Tatum's saying like, oh, I want to rehab, have you here and, get through this Achilles thing together? Like, is he pushing for this thing to happen soon?
Yeah, I just was told that they're communicating and Tatum is recruiting. I mean, Tatum is the face of the franchise. So
yep.
We're told he's recruiting. I don't know if they're like FaceTiming every day or they're on Snapchat and sharing videos and, look at my rehab video. I'm swimming.
Snapchat.
Yeah, I'm swimming. What about you? What are you up to, Dame? Like, I don't know if it's that deep, but they are communicating. And I think that it's, I think we all know Tatum's going to be here for a long time. And I think that the players who have come to Boston, I think, from Kevin Garnett to Ray Allen to Isaiah Thomas, even our friend Marcus Morris, guys who we traditionally thought might not like it here, ended up really liking it in Boston and didn't want to leave, and all the way now to Drew Holiday. He obviously was a fixture here in the community, and it's going to be, Portland might not be, obviously it's close to where he's from on the West Coast, but not that close, but, in a couple hour flight. But, I'm sure I think he very much enjoyed playing in Boston. Chris Stapps did. So the whole concept of like, you're not going to like it there and the weather and all, I think that it's a first-class organization of how they treat their players. And I think Dame is probably like a little bit older and now understands like, okay, I don't want to be Barkley, Malone, Stockton. I don't want to be these great players who didn't even sniff a championship. Like, I think that's got to be really important as he approaches. I think he's turning 35 in a couple of days. And, as he approaches his late 30s, nothing's promised. And I think he has to kind of take advantage of a championship window.
So speaking of Jaylen, he's been out doing his community work throughout this offseason. Feels like the trade stuff's in the past here. He's going to be the focal point on this roster here. And whether Lillard joins now or not, Tatum's out for most, if not all, of the season. And Damian Lillard will be as well if he does end up joining the roster in the near future here. So this is the Jaylen show to some degree this season. And Derek White's obviously going to be a prominent part here. And you've got multiple returning players from the championship still, even with all the other guys going out the door here. But this is what we've talked about. This is Jaylen's time here to show what he's capable of leading a team. And he's talked about it in the past. And this is something I think he's wanted to some degree. So that's the most exciting storyline for me going into this year. And Noah and I have both had a chance to be around his community work a little bit this offseason. And Noah was at the Bridge program last week and got to talk to him about the relationship with fans that we've discussed here. And it's like the same people we've seen at every fan event, Noah, who are showing up and showing him a lot of love here. And, he's a guy who's gotten a lot of criticism in the past. And I think he's a guy who has talked up his ability to lead a team and how he's had to sacrifice to be part of championship teams here. So I know you got into all of that with him. What was that conversation like?
Yeah, I attended, and I'll link my story just so I know there's a lot of quotes out there, but I attended his camp last week, which for those of you that don't know, he runs a educational camp at MIT for a week every summer. He's been doing it since 2021, and he brings in different guests and speakers, and it's students from the Boston area, and it's just kind of this immersive, like full interdisciplinary educational experience. And I talked to Jaylen like a week after the season ended, and the big thing that he said was, this summer I'm going to be around Boston because usually we play through June and I go travel around the world, and this summer I'm going to be in Boston and I'm going to really immerse myself in the community. And then he said that, and then pretty much every week since then there has been something going on, that he's giving away shoes or hanging out with fans or doing a pop-up or going to Canterbury Lake Park or whatnot. And so most of our conversation centered around Bridge, and I have a whole story about Bridge as well, and just kind of why he's so invested in that program and why he's so invested in giving back and relationship with his grandmother and all of that. But he did also talk a little bit about how this summer has been almost kind of like therapeutic for him, because I think it's been well chronicled. We didn't get into specifics of like around the things that really have bothered him, but it's been well chronicled. I think that he's been in trade rumors over the years. It started with booze on draft night. There's been the 1A, 1B, being kind of in Tatum's shadow and a lot of the discourse around that. And I think he really has felt this summer that as he's going to all these events, that he has like these really diehard fans in his corner. And it's almost sounds kind of silly because like, obviously you're a franchise player, like you have a ton of fans, but he's really gotten to know those people, the people that are fighting for him online and all of that. So he got into all of that in our conversation. And he got into how he feels like there's a lot more than he could show. And I know sometimes when he says stuff like that, and he said that a lot over the years, it becomes a big story of like Jaylen says that he is sacrificed, and people look at his like usage rate or look at the shot attempts. And I don't get the sense that that's what he's talking about. Like, I don't think he's going to shoot more next year. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he shoots the exact amount of shots that he shot in previous years. So we'll see how it all plays out, but I thought it was an interesting conversation, and he was kind of like more open than usual about just talking about these things and how some of it's affected him and how the relationship this summer has been so positive and has been so nice to actually like I think sometimes online feels so hostile that when you go into the community and you realize like what real fans feel like, it makes a big difference too.
Yeah, and I got some of the quotes lined up here. I want to read them off. He said, "It's been a long journey here in Boston. I've had to deal with a lot. I feel like I haven't been able to be myself in certain capacities because of the politics, because maybe people feel uncomfortable with who I am." And I know he's expressed the difficulty or some of the apprehension he had coming to Boston in the first place because of the reputation and all that, and then has met some of that head on with some of the business stuff he's tried to do and all that. I know he's spoken about that in other interviews. as Noah mentioned, talked about the support he's gotten from the fans head on with these. And again, at these events, it's a lot of the same people there, which is pretty funny. So like it's some of his biggest supporters who are lining up and trying to, see him and spend some time with him at a lot of these events that he's done here. He said these people have become friends now. I'm different. I've done different things, pissed people off, made people not like me, things like that. I appreciate those who show up. We have people who show up in the rain, which is true. I was there for that one. And that is very appreciated by me. So then he got into some of the basketball stuff a little bit later. And again, that's how this stuff reads to me, as I read it, and I want to get the context of it, Noah, because this was obviously, I think, the quote that's going to stand out to a lot of people. But it's about the things that he disagrees with here. And I want to pull up this one. I disagree with a lot of things. I've had to change roles, styles. I've had to do things that other players of my talent just haven't had to do, and I've been okay with them because I've always been a team guy. I feel like sometimes that gets taken for granted. I'm extremely grateful that we won a championship. I'm extremely grateful that we've been able to have success, and that's what it's about. It's not all about you. It's not all about me. You know what I mean? I want the next generation to know that as well. It's okay to play your role on the team. It's okay to do whatever, but don't let that define you. And then he capped off the piece, as you wrote at the end there. I feel like I'm very talented. I'm one of the talented people in this league, on this planet. I feel like I'm looking forward to showing the world more this year, obviously. So how did some of that stuff come up in your conversation?
It really all centered around just what the kind of community work has done for him this summer. And like, I think part of why it has meant so much is because it hasn't always been easy. So that was kind of the context. Like I actually didn't intend to even get into that stuff when we were talking. Like my story was about Bridge initially. But it's nothing really completely new. Like I'm sure Gary, who's covered Jaylen most of his career or all of his career, like this is the kind of stuff that he has said time and again. And I don't know, he never really gets into specifics around like what's the number one thing that he feels like he sacrificed. I'll just say from my standpoint, like I'm sure there's a feeling of like, Tatum gets injured and like this team is immediately counted out, right? Like he's not viewed as by a lot of people as a player who can kind of keep this team in the mix single-handedly. And so that's my own commentary, not his words. But I wonder if like some of just the discourse around his abilities to lead the team, and even as soon as like, being very fresh off of finals MVP, I think a lot of fans wanted to see him get traded this summer and get some assets back and kind of set the table. So like, I think that's more a lot of the things that he, could be referring to. But we've had this conversation a million times though, whether he makes sense long-term alongside another Supermax, and all of those logistical things, and those play into it as well. But I think from his standpoint, like he's been one of this franchise's pillars, and like he still finds himself in those conversations a lot. And I can imagine that has some sort of impact around, how you feel about the city and the fan base and all of that.
Yeah, knowing him, Gary, and reading this, and we've read similar stuff from him in the past. Like I think of that New York Times article he did where he talked about some of the discomfort in the city and sacrificing here and this. And obviously, again, he's talked up his ability to lead a team and be a number one option. And that's obviously not the role he's played here. What's your reaction to this stuff? Obviously, like feel like he's probably felt uncomfortable at times here in the past, and I think he's in a much better place now with where he's at on the team and in the city. But there's obviously still frustrating moments for him, I'm sure.
Yeah, with Jaylen, I think there's a definite chip on his shoulder that has to fuel him, and I think that's a lot of that comes out with kind of the boos on draft night. Because it kind of started, that's where it started. And I tend to think that I don't know if people booed because they didn't like him. People booed in Boston because they don't watch Pac-12 basketball and they had no idea about Jaylen Brown at Cal, right? I was the only one who was like, this is a good pick because I'm a Cal guy and I watched him all his freshman. And he watched him all his freshman year. Like people in the Northeast do not watch like I had to be the only one when it existed in the Northeast that subscribed to the Pac-12 network. And, I remember watching, and I think
the ACC now.
Yeah, and now we're down with the ACC. But I think it started from there, and I think he took that personally. But I also think it's like the Jordan thing, where it's like any slight, I'm taking, I'm just going to magnify it. But I also think it was a kind of reintegration. It started also the reintegration of Gordon Hayward back into the lineup, and like that took Jaylen. Remember, they made, him and Jason went on the cusp of the finals without Gordon and without Kyrie, and then Gordon comes back, and then that took Jaylen's minutes away, and Jaylen felt some kind of way about that. Remember his initial relationship with Kyrie. Now they're buds, but they were not buds when he played the 2 years that Kyrie played in Boston. They were oil and water. And I think that the discourse, the conversation about Jaylen over the years, the turnovers, the ball handling, so some of it is his own. Like, he needed to get better, and I think there's certain things he did get better at, certain things he could still work on. But he takes those as slights. And so for me, I just think he kind of feels like, man, I'm the senior member of this organization. I've won a championship. I got an NBA Finals MVP and an Eastern Conference MVP on my mantle, and I don't feel celebrated. And maybe that's the discourse nationally. I think he is celebrated and appreciated in Boston because he's by far from anyone gives to the community. I remember like every community event used to be Taco Fall, right? When Taco was here, Taco was the one there, and Taco did everything. Taco was swimming with the kids and, playing at Franklin Park Zoo and all that. Like, Taco was the man, and Jaylen has kind of taken that mantle and really reached out to the regular folks in Boston who just love the Celtics. So he should be wildly popular. He's going to get his number retired. But I also think there's a kind of a national discourse. Well, Jaylen's a number 2, and Jaylen needs to work on his handle, and he's surly, and and I just think also he looks at the lack of marketing opportunities. Like, hey, I'm the NBA Finals MVP. Where are my commercials? Why am I not selling cars? Why am I not selling potato chips? I think he kind of understands, and I think he fully understands his role as, going out against Nike, not getting chosen for Team USA. All that incorporates this, where, Grant Hill basically go, oh, well, Jaylen wasn't a good fit. Like, wow, man, really? Like, you don't take the NBA Finals MVP and you don't give him a look. You just basically count him out. So I think it's not only the Celtics, it's the national discourse. It's everything that is kind of balled up into kind of a whole huge, basketball filled with motivation, right? And we'll see now. I agree with Noah. I don't think he's going to be chucking up 25 shots a game. He's not going to be Allen Iverson 2000, right? He's not going to be just like, I'm getting my numbers. I don't know about anybody else here. I think he'll play within the team concept, but I also think he'll embrace the new responsibility. And I think it's an exciting time for him. And as much as of course he'd love to play with Jason. Of course he'd love Jason back. Of course he wants to win a title. But I think this is new for him, and I think he'll embrace it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think that's kind of what the premise was, Gary, what you said about him being in the community. Like, it is pretty rare for a player of his stature to be so available as he has been both this summer and also years prior. But I think especially like these last few months, he's made such a concerted effort where he's not only going to these events, but like he'll spend 10 minutes while like we were at an event in Dorchester for Juneteenth, and it's like literally every single kid in that gym he had an extensive conversation with, whether it's these pop-ups, like 8 hours worth of thing. So what you're saying, like, there has been all this discourse and these debates, and sometimes I can only imagine, like, it's exhausting to me as a media member. I can only imagine what it feels like to be a player and to see your name on social media and all the discourse and the trolls and all of that. And so I do think that's been what has kind of anchored him this summer, is this realization of like this community really cherishes him, and despite all the noise and all those things, and now he has this really unique opportunity that he probably was never going to have in Boston. I mean, he wasn't going to have in Boston had Tatum's very unfortunate injury not happened. So I'm very curious. The second Tatum went down, I was thinking like, is going to be really intriguing to see, because it was a hypothetical that we never really expected to see play out here. Similar to like Peyton Pritchard as a starting guard. Like I was like, I don't know if that's ever going to be with the Celtics. I'd love to see it. Like I'm very curious about it, but is it going to be in Boston, or is it going to have to be like he goes to Charlotte and does that? And so there are some scenarios now that just because of the way things played out, we'll get a sense of what these players are capable of or not. And from that sense, it's intriguing.
Yeah, and of course, I think the way Jaylen approaches some of his frustrations sometimes leaves things vague and it leaves people to interpret them. And, when I do read some of these quotes, like I do wonder what he disagrees with. The sacrifice thing, I've always said, yeah, he's probably sacrificing as being the face of a team and to make it work here in Boston. I think that's a lot of what he's talking about here. To me, just reading it, is the perception, how he's viewed, how he's looked at. Maybe he doesn't feel like he's discussed, or he's certainly paid like one of the stars of the league. So he's gained more recognition, I feel like. Like you said, Gary, he's the finals MVP, the East Finals MVP, Supermax player. I think Jaylen's gained a lot of not only respect in those circles nationally and with the contract and the recognition there, but also the local adulation too. And listen, I tweeted out the story this morning knowing you're going to get the backlash from people who, I think a lot of it is fans of Tatum. Like that's a new thing, Gary, is like there aren't necessarily just Celtics fans who follow this team. It's Tatum fans who just root for Tatum, and like it's a
Tatum against Brown. Yes. Like you can like both. They play in the same team. Like you could.
How did that start? Like I wasn't online for those days. I just joined Twitter when I started this job, so I don't know how this stuff was. But like, why did it start at this point where the two franchise stars are always like at odds with one another? Like why couldn't it? Like I don't really see that in most teams. Like what's the origin of this? I never understood it.
I think honestly, Noah, people. Okay, like not everybody is the Thunder where all these young guys seemingly hang out and they do commercials together and they're like all, play video games together. Jaylen and Jason they have a high amount of respect for each other. They're very good friends, but they're different guys. Jason's a dad. Jaylen travels the world and goes to Saudi Arabia and Dubai. And like, they're just different guys. And so that doesn't mean they don't have to be best friends. Like Bird and McHale were not best friends. Like they can be great teammates. They can have a high amount of respect for each other. Like you guys were there for the Jaylen, the 741 premiere, the night of the Celtic City premiere. Jason showed up to Jaylen's shoe premiere. Like that's support.
Yeah.
Like they're good. They're good. Like people have asked me this. The one question I get asked, like, are they like, no. But I just think that there's like Tatum fans who think that Tatum should get all the shots that Jaylen gets, and there's like this like discourse of not a large amount of fans, Noah, but some who are like, yeah, like Tatum would be better if Jaylen wasn't there. Jaylen did this, and Tatum should have won it Finals MVP. It was Jaylen's like guys, they're teammates. Like, do you want like? Do the Celtic fans want this crew want the Celtics to win, or they want Tatum to get MVP and then the Celtics to win 48 games? Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I wonder how different it would be if they were like publicly like this best friend duo, the way that there are some of those in the NBA. Like, would that have quelled a lot of the discourse? I don't know, but it is funny. Like people like impose this friendship. Like I think it's just in a narrative or something, but it's so bizarre because having like before I started covering the team, I was like, I wonder if there's something there. And then the more you're around it, the more you realize that like there's just not much of a story there, and it just becomes one, I think, for the fans.
Someone just blamed Joe Sway for it. He did say back in the day they had to have a difficult conversation, try and make it work.
I think it's stereotypical of like people putting millennials, like all millennials should all be hanging out and doing all the same things and listening to Drake and playing video games and posting on Snapchat. Like all 28, 29-year-olds, and back then when they were 24 and 25, they're not all the same. They're different. And I just think as you guys have gotten to know the team over the last few years, like Jason and Jaylen are very different guys. Like they're just different. How they talk to you, how they're good guys. They're both good guys. They're different. and that's okay. They're, just because they're the same age and they're both in the NBA and they're both black, it does not mean they're supposed to be alike. And I just think that there's so much stereotypes with that age, a misunderstanding of players who are that age, that like they can be different. They're not all, I think with the social media and a lot of us lazy media members tend, and even fans tend to put the 20 somethings all in one box and go, well, don't you like that? Like, not all like the whole, I think we've learned from the whole Kendrick Lamar against Drake thing, like not everybody loves Drake. And that's what we thought. Not all 20 somethings love the same things. And I just think that's okay with Jason and Jaylen. Like, they're different, but they have a high amount, and I'm talking the truth, they have a high amount of respect for each other. Like, they root for each other, and they know how important each other is to their success. And I think that's what kind of captivated in the finals. Like, would Jason have loved to win the finals MVP? Of course. But I don't think he was like, man, I got screwed, man. I feel like he wanted to be a champion. That was number one. And I think the sacrifices he made and the sacrifices Jaylen made got them a championship.
Yeah, you're not always going to be best friends with the people you work with, which is true across the board. Except me and Noah, we're tight. So, Gary,
Bobby, are you referring to somebody? Like, is that a subliminal message you're sending to somebody at CLNS? Like, what's going on here?
I was just checking in. Seeing how everyone's feeling. Yeah. So the last thing I want to ask you guys about here is the last note. He's excited to lead the team this year, and again, Noah said it earlier. This is the most intriguing storyline going into this year by far to me, and I love that he's excited for it. I love, even with some of the backlash I read, Noah, and I'm sure you've heard, this is a bold, like, him being excited about this, I think is a bold, take on this year, because it's going to be difficult.
Let me say something there. This is my number one qualm with the way quotes get assessed by the media and by fans. Every single NBA player should think that they have the ability to lead a team, should be unreasonably confident in themselves, should think that they're the greatest thing in the world and they're the next, best scorer in the NBA. Like, Peyton Pritchard thinks that he's a superstar, right? Like, that's what makes them great. And so, of course, Jaylen Brown, who was the finals MVP and has a 4-time All-Star and all these things, of course he thinks he can take the reins of this team and do the very best that he can. And I'm sure there's going to be some low moments, and I'm sure there are going to be some moments where it looks great. But every time I see outrage when a player says I'm ready to show the world what I can do, I'm going to take a leap, all of that, I'm always like, what do you think makes these guys great? How do you think these guys got to this point? How do they become lottery picks and all-stars? That's what separates a lot of great athletes that could have been in those shoes and the guys that aren't. And so to me, it's we should collectively stop freaking out when we see players say these things, because that's the way that it works.
So
that's why they are the way they are.
Here's my take on it, because I don't begrudge him for feeling confident in this. And again, you should, if you're going to be up for this position here and wanting to have that role, you have to believe you can do it. So I don't have any issue with that. I'm just intrigued because building up expectations for this year, when we know it's going to be challenging, when we know it's going to be a different roster, and Pritchard's done it too, right? He, at his exit interview, was like, we can still be great. We can still win. We can still do all of that. So I think you're going to hear that from a lot of different guys going into the season. For Jaylen, I'm just intrigued, Gary, because this is a new territory for him. He's done it for a game. He's done it for a week or two here or there, and he's done great in those situations. And if you look at the most recent example, game five rather specifically, after the Tatum injury, maybe the best game of his career. And then game 6, one of the worst games of his career. So to me, this season, the expectation is going to be on him, fair or not. And I love that he's embracing it. I love that he's building up those expectations, when he talks about wanting to be in this position. But, and this is what I'm interested to see this year, Noah, the scrutiny is going to be on him big time. And I think the first couple weeks of this season, especially coming off an injury and all that, there might be some struggles. There might be some ups and downs with him acclimating to that role. Like, I think too, Gary, the defensive pressure he's going to face without Tatum out there is going to be unlike anything he's seen in his career, because Tatum's been there the whole way. So by the end of the year, can he be in that All-NBA conversation? Can he put this team in a playoff position? I think so. But it's going to be a challenge. There's going to be some highs and lows this year. And I'm so intrigued to see how he's going to handle it, because there's going to be criticism that comes with it too. When he has a bad game, we know some segments of the fan base are going to be all over him.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of this is on Jaylen. Like, and what I mean by that is the maturity of how he has become as a player. I think 3 or 4 years ago, Jaylen was not a great on-court decision maker. He was careless with the ball, and he still has his moments where he's careless with the ball. But I think if he works on his ball handling and works and continues to improve his decision making, like, okay, I know I'm Jaylen and I got major ups and I'm strong as hell, but I'm not going to go 1-on-3 and try to dunk on 3 guys like on a fast break. I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to wait for Derek. I'm going to hit Derek pulling up for the 3. Boom. Okay, we got 3 points there. Like, the decision making, can he be a floor leader? Can he? Because obviously we saw that in Game 5, and as you pointed out, Bobby, in Game 6, it was a struggle. He tried to do too much, and you saw teams with starting in the playoffs with Orlando, like, just start to just literally strip the ball from him. Like, that was the thing. Let him past you, and then just whack it. Right? You're not going to probably get a foul call. If you do, oh well. Like, so there's going to be scouting reports, and there has been, about his ball handling. Will Jaylen come to camp improved? He's improved over the years. But can he be that? Can he take his game from A- to A to, can he be a top 15 player? And that doesn't mean dropping 30 a game. That means maybe 23, 8 assists, 8 rebounds. Can he be that guy? Because Derek's going to blossom too. I think big year for Derek. Derek is a guy who I think can score more points himself. Peyton's going to score more. Like, everybody's going to get to eat here. And Jaylen is going to have to be more of a floor leader. And then and then this team needs to also find an enforcer. Like, that's the one thing they lost with Marcus. Was Marcus would get in somebody's face. This team has no enforcers, right? Al is kind of one. Drew,
Jaylen will actually do it more than anyone else on the roster.
Yes. But can you be the number one option and your enforcer? Can you get in somebody's face? But like, I needed, like, Jaylen, Jaylen needs to play like, listen, we're the Celtics. Y'all ain't gonna take us lightly. I know we missing the best player, but you know what? Every night we're gonna give y'all hell. Like, every opponent, play as hard as you do. I mean, like, Orlando's a flawed team, but Orlando, we saw in that playoff series, constantly played hard. Like, that's how you have to look at it. These teams that just make you and I think the Missoula mentality feeds right into that, because they're not going to be a pretty team. The prettiness is gone with this team. Jason's a pretty player. Chris, that's a pretty player. Drew has pretty part, but they need to play like some grinders, and maybe Jaylen can lead that charge.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how they find some defensive power too. That's going to be a part of his role too, Noah, now, because think of the role Tatum played defensively for this team. Everyone's going to think about the offense that they're missing from him, but he played a critical defensive role in Horford and Holiday and all these guys going out the door that filled those roles. The last thing I want to ask you, Noah, because you said it earlier, you're not expecting his shot totals to go up necessarily here, even though he's going to be taking on that number one role. I totally agree that's the best way for him to go, because there's still guys here who can set the table offensively. You can lean on White to help you out. You can lean on Pritchard to set the table offensively. And then you don't have to be absorbing double teams and all the traps that these teams are going to throw at him and all of that. So when you're looking at how he's going to approach this year, what are you expecting from him in terms of how he's going to approach the game as that number one option?
Yeah, I think you're probably seeing him shoot a little bit more. Inevitably, I think all those guys are going to up their averages, just because the shots have to come from somewhere, right? But thinking about Game 5 and the way that he was kind of playing a little bit slower, a little bit more of a playmaker, a little bit more of an all-around game, and not so much like an urgency that he has to capitalize on the opportunities that he has, because he knows that there's a lot of shots to go around and that sort of thing. Like, I think everybody's going to feel a little bit a little bit less anxiety there. And honestly, like Tatum is not going to be on the floor regardless. So some of those guys that I think can tend to try to call their own number and get going, like there's not that many of them left. So I don't think you're going to see Jaylen do that as much. Like a lot of people I've seen, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, Jaylen Brown, like number one hoops option, like he's going to be dribbling off his foot. Like I think you're actually going to see it a little bit in the other direction, because he's not going to feel the need to force the issue as much, because he knows at the end of the day, like if they're down by 1 with 10 seconds to go, like he's probably going to get the game winner. Like those are the little things that he just hasn't had those opportunities much in his career. Like being the closer on the roster, like he's had a few like almost accidental game winners, but for the most part, like that's been Tatum. So that's where I think you're going to see more of a difference. Like he'll have some of those classic opportunities. He's going to be the last name that's called in the starting lineup introductions, like little things like that. But I don't think his game is going to be drastically different. Efficiency wise, I think you're going to see a lot of people's efficiency go down, because you no longer have that floor spacing that you had over these past couple of years. But otherwise, I expect him to put up like pretty similar, if not better numbers, just because he's going to have, more opportunities and longer stretches and kind of have to be the guy that they lead on at times. But I don't think he's going to force the issue the way that a lot of people are projecting right now.
Feel the same, Gary?
Yeah, I feel like he'll have. I mean, remember, like Jaylen is about to be 29. Like he's a grown man in this league. He's, 10th year, right? Like 2016. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Makes me feel old. So yeah, 10 year. This is year 10 for him. So just maturing his on-floor game is, to me, very important. And I don't think he'll just try to chuck up shots and try to be that guy and be like, well, I want to make the all-star team. I think he'll play within the team concept, but I also think he'll try to unleash some new things in his game. And I know he'll be in the lab. I know he's in the lab right now, where we got 2.5 months maybe before camp starts. So he's got some time to work. Hopefully the knee is healing. The post-surgery is fine. He can start doing some real athletic stuff. And I'm sure the Celtics will take their time with him and make sure he's 100% by opening tip, whenever, October 22nd or 23rd or whatever. But to me, I think he'll play within the team concept, and he'll understand, and he'll be a better off the floor leader too. Because remember, no Al, no Drew, no Jason. 3 leaders gone. Kristaps was a leader in his own way, but Al was the major, voice of reason, and the guy that you looked at, and he was reading the paper, and he was with his family. You're like, okay, young guys come in and go, okay, when I'm that age, that's
he was
what
reading
I
the paper.
Yeah, he'd be reading the paper and read, and then you would see Al, and you just like, with his son there, Ian, and then you just kind of look. I'm sure some of the young guys said, I'm not there yet, but that's how I want to be when, one, I want to get to that place where I'm his age in the league, and 2, I want to be where I can bring my little son or daughter into the locker room and, basically be around them like Jason does with Deuce. I think some of the younger players, they're not all about, not all of them about just that life, right? And some of them understand that they're not going to be young forever. So I think that Jaylen will be needs to be a better leader. I think he will be on the floor and off the floor. So I have full confidence in him. Just my only fear is him trying to do too much ball hand. Don't try to show your weakness, like your weaknesses or your strengths. Just play within the game and you'll be fine.
Yeah, so you can go read this story over on Celtics blog right now, celticsblog.com. Jaylen's latest comments looking ahead to the year and about the MIT Bridge program that he just conducted for another year here. And he's done a bunch of those in a row every year for youth in Boston. So you can go check that out as well. We have an interview coming with Ugo Gonzalez. We didn't see him tonight, but Noah and I talked to him on the first day out here, a little bit in Spanish. Gary, we tested it out.
Gary, you would not have been happy if you had seen it in live time. It was a tough watch. It's going to be a tough watch for those at home. I'm going to just disclaim.
But I will say, it's nice to be able to get a guy talking in his native language. I think he appreciated it. So
yeah,
we tried our best, as he's doing in English with us. So
his best is a lot better than our best. That I'll say.
Absolutely. There's
I can just imagine. I'm OS Bobby. Like, I could just imagine him looking at you like, really, like, I could just, like, I'm looking forward. That'll be must-see TV.
The first day I met him, he said it was pretty good. And then I guess once the pressure turned up in an interview environment, I just went like this. So Noah got the win for that day in terms of her skills. So, yeah, that'll be coming out on the YouTube channel. I'm sure everyone's anticipating that. We got a bunch of podcasts coming out to start this week out here. And then, of course, we'll have a post-game show tomorrow because the Celtics are playing again against the Heat at 5 o'clock out here, I believe 8 o'clock Eastern. So later games, Celtics Heat getting started. 3rd out of 4 Summer League games. There'll be a 5th one as well later this week out here. Noah's here the whole way. You're here for about a week, Gary, right?
Yes, sir. Yep. I'll be be there through the Lakers game.
Yep, so you can check out his coverage, of course, in the Boston Globe, as well as on the Big Three podcast he does with Sherrod and Kwani Luna. So check all that out over on CLNS Media, Celtics All Access. Subscribe to those channels, turn on the notifications. It's getting later in the offseason, but we'll still go live if anything happens on the Lillard front or there's some additional moves that could happen down the line here late this summer. So all that and more is available over on all the channels. Check that out. And of course, check out our great sponsor, Prize Picks. Use the code CLNS. And when you play a $5 lineup, you will get a $50 bonus over there. But that's it for us here today. Celtics moved to 2-0 in Summer League, beat the Knicks, and Celtics Heat on deck for tomorrow. So we'll have another show tomorrow night. Talk to you then. Thanks to Gary for stopping by. Thanks to Noah Dalzell. I'm Bobby Manning. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Sorry, Gary, for not getting you a bucket hat for this one. We'll get you next time.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way.
Yeah.
Let's slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke